The name on the tombstone wasn't mine, not anymore. I stood there, hands buried deep in my jacket pockets, breath clouding in the crisp fall air, staring at letters that used to belong to me. I had promised myself I wouldn't come back, and yet here I was. I didn't know if I'd come to say goodbye or ask for permission. My name is Gabriel, but once, a long time ago, it was Rachel. The first time I told my parents I didn't feel like their daughter, my father laughed it off. My mother cried. The second time, he didn't laugh. He didn't say anything at all. By the third time, I understood that silence can cut deeper than words. So I left. New name, new city, new body, new rules. I rebuilt myself from the ground up. But the past has a way of following you, especially when it wears the face of someone you loved. Lillian, she had been my best friend when I was still Rachel. She was one of those rare people whose faith never felt forced. It just was quiet, steady, unwavering. I used to envy her certainty. When I told her about my transition, she didn't flinch. She hugged me and said, "I love you, no matter what." When I disappeared, she still sent messages. When she got sick, I didn't reply because I was afraid that her love might have changed, afraid that it hadn't. So when she died, I didn't go to the funeral. I told myself I didn't belong, that Gabriel had no right to mourn Rachel's friend. But grief doesn't care who you are now, and some losses echo loudest in silence. So here I was, 2 years too late, standing over a grave with my heart in pieces. "I'm sorry," I whispered. The wind rustled the leaves, the world went on indifferent. I let out a laugh that felt more like a sob. "If God is all powerful," I murmured, "could he make a stone so heavy even he couldn't lift it? Because that's what this feels like." I closed my eyes. "God, if you're there, if you even recognize who I am anymore, I need a sign." Silence. Then a hand touched my shoulder. I spun, heart racing. It was Jesse, Lillian's younger brother. I hadn't seen him in years, but the sight of him cracked something open inside me. "I figured I'd find you here," he said. "How?" "Lillian told me you'd come someday." That nearly brought me to my knees. He shifted, hands in his pockets. "You disappeared?" I nodded, unable to speak. There are moments when guilt says more than words ever could. I finally managed, "I don't even know if I believe anymore." Jesse, smile soft, steady. "Maybe God's not asking you to believe right now. Maybe he's just asking you to listen." We stood in silence. For the first time in years, I wasn't running. Then he asked, "Do you know what the name Gabriel means?" I shook my head. "Messenger." I let out a broken laugh. "Well, God definitely picked the wrong guy for that." Jesse shrugged. "Maybe he didn't." I didn't have a response, but for the first time in a long time, I wanted to find one. That Sunday, I stepped into a church for the first time in over a decade. I sat in the back, arms crossed, every muscle ready to run, but I didn't. The pastor stood and said, "It doesn't matter where you've been, it only matters where you're going." And for the first time in my life, I thought maybe, just maybe, I was finally going home.